Have you ever wanted to buy yourself your very own longsword, but didn't know where to start? Have you looked at various websites across the internet and look at these swords for $70, $100, $200 and go, I could probably afford that. But does it actually work? Is it really even a sword? What if I told you right now there's a sword you could buy for $200? Does it sound too good to be true? Will the sword make you the King of England? Or will it be just something you hang on your wall like another piece of mall ninja or something you would get at a Renaissance fair? I don't know. Let's find out. What I have for you right here is the Swordier SWM-1030 upgraded Type 16A floral themed European longsword. Will this sword be the last sword you ever need? Probably not. There's never too many swords to have. But will it get the job done? We're gonna look at it today. Little disclaimer first and foremost, I did buy this sword with my own money. However, when I ordered the sword originally, I ordered the spring steel version, and they had an option for what they called Damascus. I refuse to use that term, but it's a pattern weld, and I decided I wanted to look at that one. So I went on their website and tried to figure out a way of canceling it, and they did not make it easy. I emailed Alex over at Swordier.com, and he replied back to me very quickly and said, you know what? I will change your order for you to the pattern welded, no additional charge. I thought that was really nice of Alex. The price difference between the spring steel version and the pattern welded is only about $30 US, but if you think that makes me biased, well, at least you know ahead of time that Alex did do me a solid, and instead of just canceling my order as I requested and allow me to remake it again, he just sent me the pattern welded and just left me pay what I would have paid for a spring steel version. Still, very stand-up thing to do, and I really do appreciate that. For those of you unaware of what a Type 16A blade is, a Type 16A from the Oakeshott typology is a combination cut and thrust blade that was the answer during the early 14th century to the ever-increasing use of armor on the European battlefield. Coming to you from my editing dungeon, I actually had to move outside because it's too loud inside in order to do this edit, but I actually forgot to make a few comments on this sword that I wanted to in the original section, but I forgot. I blame the heat, I really do. I want to first off talk about the fact that we referred to this sword as a Type 16A. I refer to it as a Type 16A because Swordier referred to it as a Type 16A. There is some debate on whether or not this actually is a Type 16A or not. Typically speaking, a Type 16A had a hexagonal cross section. This looks more like a flattened diamond. Now, some 16As did have a flattened diamond past the fuller, but they were generally all hexagonal here. This does not appear to have that hexagonal cross section, but rather just being a flattened diamond with a fuller. There were possibly some that were like that, but generally speaking, this probably, if I were to classify this, would be probably closer to a Type 18A, which would actually fit the fittings a bit more, because the Type 16As historically generally had wheel pummels almost exclusively given the time period. Definitely not these fishtail. This was something much later than that. So it's maybe more of a 16A. The other thing I would point out is the tip itself. The tip, while being more acute, I don't think is quite acute enough for a Type 16A. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. This might just be a gripe on my end. It's almost, I don't want to say a spatulated tip, but something more akin to maybe even a 12A, if I think that's the right one. 12 and 13, I think 13 had the more rounded, 12 was the more pointed, if I recall. It could be the reverse. I'm doing this off the cuff. But it's still fairly acute, but not as acute as what I would think a dedicated cut and thrust blade probably should be for a Type 16A. If that's a deal breaker for you, okay. Again, I refer to it as a 16A because Swordier does. And general shape is like a 16A, but there's some things that I would probably say it's probably not a 16A. Now, Type 16As are one of my absolute favorite style of blade, but they only saw action during a very small period of time in the early 14th century, and then they sort of disappeared. And my only question is, why would such an amazing cut and thrust blade appear on the battlefield and disappear in such a relative short amount of time? The answer to that, we don't know. My theory is terrible European fashion sense. And I hear you over there saying,
Now hold on just a minute. No.
Didn't the Europeans give us the Renaissance with great art and fashion? I'm going to counter that with what's known as the peas cod belly. Yes, that's right. During the early or the late 16th, mid 16th, and early 17th century, the pinnacle of European fashion was the peas cod. It went in both clothing as well as armor. Having a abdominal protuberance was the height of fashion in Europe. I can't unsee that, and now neither can you. Going back to the SWM-1030, you'll see here with this blade, it comes with its own scabbard. It seems to be a hardwood scabbard of some kind. I would imagine probably pine or something else. It does have a cheap leather feel to it, but again, we're looking at a $200 price point, and the fact that it comes with a scabbard at all seems to be a plus. So many European swords do not come with them. Therefore, whenever I get one with a scabbard, I'm always happy about it. It does have little rain flaps here at the top, which are a nice addition. And I actually see one of the things they do on the inside of the scabbard is they put these, what I'm assuming is a type of rubber seal or rubber tape on the inside to aid in its retention. So there's this little rubber something or another, couldn't even tell you what it is without pulling it out, that does indeed help give it the retention it needs to hold it in place. That little bit of extra tension comes from in there. Generally speaking, for the price point, the scabbard's pretty nice. It also comes with this little sword belt of a kind. This is, I don't know of the same leather or something else. The fact it comes with a belt, again, it's nice, but to be frank with you, the belt's not good. It's garbage. If you're gonna wanna wear it, you're probably gonna wanna get a different belt anyway. I would much rather see Swordier put whatever few dollars or whatever it is they put into getting this sword belt and increasing other aspects of the sword itself. Keep the scabbard, keep the blade, keep all of that. This is just an excess that isn't really needed, and anyone who really wants to wear the sword would probably already own a sword belt or would buy one to make it work separately. So save your money on this would be my advice to Swordier. It's not even worth making one of these to put with the sword. Now, one thing I will say, when I started doing this and I ordered the sword, I contacted Alex and said I had an intention of reviewing this sword and that I had a couple questions for him. And if he was unwilling or unable to answer the questions, I would proceed with speculation on my part. But if he was willing to answer, it would be much better, and I would use whatever his answers were as long as I felt like they were honest. And to be fair, I believe everything Alex said was true, because there were several questions I asked knowing the answer already, but I wanted to see what Alex would say. One of the most important things is the handle grip of this sword. Now, for $200, whenever you're dealing with something like $200, it is where you cut costs in order to keep it down. Now, I will say 5 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago, 5 years ago maybe, for $200, I wouldn't cut anything with a $200 sword, even if I was using your hands, much less my own.
How dare you, sir? You are gross.
Now, steel quality and sword construction quality in this time has started to amaze me. And, you know, for $200, you don't get a whole lot. Now, maybe you could get some Japanese katana for about $200, which may be okay cutters, but even there, you're gonna start getting compromises, whether it's cheap Ito wrapping, fake ray skin, any number of other things, you know, in order to keep the cost down. With steel costs being a little cheaper nowadays, and companies generally stepping up in their production quality, we are seeing a nice increase. But with this particular sword in general, the one thing I asked Alex, and I already knew the answer, but I did ask him, what is this handle material made of? And in reality, all it is silicone rubber. It is a silicone rubber tube, if you will, something you may even use to fix like a leaking pipe underneath your sink. They put it on, they took a heat gun to it, and it shrunk it down to it. That is all that this handle is. Now, I do have complaints about that handle, because one thing, if your hands get sweaty, like mine do, this rubber makes it very, 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 very slick in the hands. Even if they had taken this and maybe put a little bit of a pattern on it to give you a little bit of extra grip, it would make it better. But once again, for $200, it's almost like go get some paracord if you have to, cut this off and put your own wrap on. If you're able to do that, you've made yourself quite a nice sword for a reasonable price. The one other thing that I like that Swordier has done, and some of the other sword companies do not do, is they use stainless steel for all of the fittings. Stainless steel does make it much easier on maintenance, so you don't have to worry about actually oiling these things in order to keep them nice, unlike some of the other higher end makers and things that use mild steels for their pommels and cross guards. You have to upkeep them. These ones are stainless steel, you don't have to. I'm not entirely sure why more companies don't use stainless steel. I'm sure there's probably a reason behind it. Maybe stainless steel is a little too brittle, though I don't expect you to be taking too many parries using these real life swords. And if you are, well, you've got bigger problems.
First rule of Fight Club is, you do not talk about Fight Club.
They do use a peen construction, which is a big plus. I did check with Alex as well, even though it does appear to be a solid peened handle construction. I wanted to make sure that this was not just a decorative peen block and something hidden, so I did ask, and he did confirm that all of his swords are indeed using a peened handle construction all the way through, which does make a very solid setup for a sword. A lot of modern companies now are using a hex nut type construction anyway, and I've had mixed results. They can be nice. If they get loose, you take an Allen wrench and you wrench it back down, wrench it tight. But I've had more rattling with those than I have with peen construction. I feel like peen construction is a bit more solid of a setup than the hex nut construction, though it does require a bit more skill to fix should any of the fittings become loose, and most people aren't going to be able to fix a peened construction if it does indeed come loose versus the hex nut. So it's a little bit of a give and take. Finally, let's talk about the steel type itself. The steel used in all these swords is 65 MN spring steel, which does give a lot of wear resistance. They're very, very tough. I can attest to this over the months of using this sword. There's barely any scratches on it, and I've hit many, many targets, soft, hard, all over the place. And there's a few abrasion scrapes on the blade and scratches on the blade, but that's about it. There's been no rolling, no chips or anything of that nature using this steel. I do notice, at least on this particular blade, perhaps it's maybe me, maybe it's someone else, that the sharpness that it came with was lost fairly quickly. Now, if you paid attention to my channel over the past few months, you'll see the majority of the shorts that I've done have been with this sword. So it's cut 100, almost 200 targets, maybe even more. It has held up incredibly well, but it is indeed less sharp now than it was when the factory sent it to me, with obvious use. That's not a knock on the blade, it's not a knock on Swordier for that. It's held up well. It could probably use with a good sharpening and stropping. Maybe even just a stropping would probably bring it back. Now, I reached out to Alex to talk about the pattern welded steel. I had questions, and to my surprise, he actually did answer. I wasn't expecting him to break down all of the metal that was used in the pattern weld, but he actually did. And I will put that up for people who actually want to see what the total content is for all of this. But I will quote what he actually wrote me. And he said, our pattern welded steel are made mainly from two steel types: high carbon with a 0.8% carbon rating, and a lower carbon steel, a 0.3%. And they mix that in with their spring steel. And they broke down the detailed content, which I'll have up for you to see. And I thought that was really, really stand up that he went ahead and actually broke down what steels they use for these swords. So thank you for that one. Back in the editing dungeon again, I made another mistake and forgot to mention something very important about the blade, and something that I think all of you would be very interested in is distal taper. Thankfully, this blade has it, and actually has a good bit of it, okay? I took 3 measurements for this. I took one right here at the base of the blade, right here a little bit after the fuller, and then right here at the tip again, I took measurements. And the measurement here was 5.89 millimeters, almost 6 millimeters here at the base. Then roughly about the halfway point, it goes down to 4.6 millimeters. And then here at the very tip, we are at 3 millimeters. So from the base to the tip, we lose about 50% of its girth in distal taper. So being almost 6 millimeters down here, to going down to, I think it was 2.9 to 3 up here, if I recall correctly. It's fairly significant and does make this blade very light. Okay, let's get back to the video now. When I received this sword was incredibly sharp. If you've watched this channel, I have used this sword a bunch, and it is not as sharp as it was when it first came out of the factory. So if it fails any of this sharpness test, it's probably due to that, more so than the fact it didn't come sharp, because it did. It came very sharp. For this paper cut test, I'm just going to insert it first into the paper and then see if it cuts. And you see it kind of rips a little bit more than anything. It's a bit humid out today, so I'm not sure if it will even cut some of this. Now, it just pretty much tears the paper at the moment. And as I said, take what you will from that, but the sword is a lot duller now than it was originally. But how about we stop talking about it and let's look at actual cutting. Probably will be standing like this. Stop blowing wind. I wonder how much wind it's gonna pick up. I have a wind filter on, but I don't know if it'll do anything. All right. All right, so we got our Swordier Type 16A longsword here. We're gonna try to give this a shot. This thing is currently weighing in at roughly about 2.7 pounds, I think it is. Percussion point on this sword, the node is about right here, which is where you would probably wanna see it on a 16A blade anyway. So when I'm striking, we're gonna have to try to hit it right about at this position right here. All right, let's give this a shot, see how well it does. Ooh. Ooh. That is a pretty clean cut, not too bad. Whew. That looks nice. Nice. That is smooth. See here, that is one fairly smooth cut. I messed up a little bit here with my swing. You see a little bit of cutting here, but the rest of it looks beautiful. I think I'm off the spike. Not too bad. This one. Ooh. That's nice. That's clean cut. Hit my last bomb. One more. Nice. Now this sword, it feels good in the hand. It is nice and it's light. It moves. It's just a joy to cut with. Absolute joy to cut with. Given all the cutting tests that we've done with this thing so far and how much I've used this sword, I have to sit here and think, how would I rate this sword for those who actually want to use it? Again, given the fact that this sword is a $200 sword, kind of blew me away. When I first saw this sword, I thought to myself, $200, I'll buy it, and worst case scenario, I broke it. Oh well, who cares, right? I've bought more expensive thing and wasted money on more things than that before. I figured if I got any use out of it, make a video out of the sword, anything of that nature, I would have gotten the money back and had some fun with it. But it actually surprised me above and beyond what I was expecting for the price range. If you've watched the channel, you'll know that this sword has probably featured more in any short than any other sword I own, solely for the fact that, to me, it's the most fun to cut with. I have swords that are 8, 9 times more expensive than this sword, and I still prefer to use this sword. I think it really stands to point to what Swordier is trying to do with some of their newer models. Now, if I were gonna rate this sword, the rating system that I would generally use would be a point scale of 1 to 5, with points awarded for general aesthetics and its construction, the way that it looks. I would give points for durability and construction. I would give points for how it handles. I would give points for its base sharpness out of the box and any cutting performance. And then this is where things get different, because I would do a value to cost ratio. Because once again, when we start reviewing swords that are in the more expensive, higher tier, you're looking at $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 range, you're going to expect more out of them. So you tend to award points, things that you would let pass in other swords of a lower quality, you wouldn't let go in a higher quality sword. So the value to cost ratio is where it would make up any extra points. For this sword, I would rate this a solid 4.5 peas cods out of 5. I would award half a point for the general aesthetics of the sword and the fittings of the sword, solely because of this handle wrap. It does its job, but not very well. And when the handle is the place that your hand and your body interface with the sword, this should probably be one of the areas they focus the most on. The handle shape is actually really nice. Very, very nice handle shape, but this rubber takes away from it. And if you've been using the sword a lot and you get sweaty hands, it could make it very hard to maintain edge alignment, could even possibly cause issues of losing your grip on the sword, which is never good. Generally speaking, the handling of the sword is solid and gets a point there. For handling, I just give a solid point for it. I've had swords that handled better. I've had swords that handled way, way worse. Before its price point, it does what I expect it to do. It feels good in the hands. It's fun to cut with. It's not too tip heavy. Point of balance seems good, and I really, really like that. The peen construction and overall solid construction of the sword, even with the amount of cutting I've done with it, there is no looseness, no rattling, no chips, rolls, or anything of that nature. It's a solid, well-built sword, so it's got to get a point. Sharpness out of the box was really good, and again, it still maintains, and I still cut with it daily. Even though it's not paper cutting sharp anymore, it still does the job you need it to do. And finally, a solid point has to be given, and actually I almost would say I'd make up extra if I wanted to for the point cost value for this one, because the cost of value of this sword is crazy. If they would have wrapped this a little differently, I could expect this sword once upon a time to go for twice as much, if not more. And even at that rate, I probably wouldn't feel like I was getting ripped off. The value of this sword and what you get out of it for the amount of money you spent cannot be underestimated. I have no idea if this microphone will pick up the fan that is slightly blowing down at my feet. I want to adjust this a bit more so it's actually a bit more useful to me. All right, so that's at its lowest setting. I'm gonna put it up to a 2. Does it pick it up at this level? I don't know, we're gonna find out, but it is very humid out here right now. And if I could do this using that fan, man, would it be wonderful. But I don't think it's gonna work. I mean, I got a noise filter, I got all that, but we're gonna find out. Deciding to do it today in this lovely heat was probably not the wisest, nor wearing my gambesson. Unfortunately, here we are. I thought today would be nice. It was raining earlier, temperature was low. I was like, it's a little rainy, but hey, let's give it a shot. I waited too long because my camera battery died. And now it started to get warmer. The humidity has gone up and the rain has stopped. So now it's miserable. I think that's going to be too much. I really do think it's going to be too much, but we're going to give it a shot anyway. Don't need the pen. This is me with the fan at its lowest, blowing a nice little breeze towards my face. Doesn't do anything for the rest of me, but we'll see how it goes. All right, I'll turn it off and just make sure it's working. All right. Audio without the fan. Let's see. All right. Generally, they were a hexagonal. My goodness, I cannot speak today. Must be the heat. For those of you unaware of what a Type 16A is, Type 16A came to prominence. All right, had to start over because the camera went crazy.